9-year-old Maid's son destroys billionaire who called him a monkey at chess. Hey, beautiful souls, your support absolutely lights up my world. Hit that subscribe button to join our growing family and help me share more heartwarming stories with you. Here's my promise. I personally read and reply to every comment because I genuinely love connecting with each of you. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from right now. I can't wait to hear from you. Now, let's dive into today's extraordinary tale together. The crystal chandeliers cast fractured rainbows across the marble floors of the Callaway mansion, their light catching the edges of champagne flutes and diamond jewelry. The air thrummed with the low murmur of wealth, conversations conducted in the careful tones of those who measured their words as precisely as their stock portfolios. Violins whispered from hidden speakers, their melody threading through the rooms like expensive perfume. Richard Callaway moved through his domain with the predatory grace of a man who had never met an equal. His tailored tuxedo fit him like armor, and his smile cut sharp enough to draw blood. He paused beside clusters of guests, dispensing calculated charm and casual cruelties in equal measure, watching how quickly people laughed at jokes that weren't funny, how eagerly they nodded at opinions they didn't share. In the service corridors that veined the mansion's grandeur, Lydia Brooks worked with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned to be invisible. Her uniform clung to her thin frame, damp with perspiration from hours of polishing surfaces that already gleamed. Every few minutes, her eyes would dart toward the small figure huddled near the back stairs. Her 9-year-old son Malik, clutching a worn backpack like a lifeline. She shouldn't have brought him. The risk gnawed at her stomach like hunger, but desperation had left her no choice. Her other children were working their own jobs, and the rent wouldn't wait for convenient childcare. She'd whispered her plea to the head housekeeper, promising invisibility, promising silence. Malik's wide eyes absorbed everything. The way light seemed to bend around the wealthy guests, the rustle of silk against marble, the sharp scent of cigars mixing with the sweetness of catered delicacies. To him, the mansion felt like a cathedral built to worship money, each room a shrine to power he couldn't yet comprehend. From his corner, he caught fragments of sound from the lounge, not just voices, but something else, a rhythmic clicking, deliberate and musical. Chess pieces striking wood. The sound pulled at something deep in his chest, a recognition he couldn't name. Richard had retreated to his inner sanctum by the time the evening reached its crescendo. The lounge embodied everything he was: dark leather, mahogany shelves lined with books he'd never read, to be the target. Yet, Malik's curiosity had grown stronger than his fear. He crept closer to the lounge doorway, drawn by the geometric beauty of the pieces dance across their checkered battlefield. The knight's L-shaped leap, the bishop's diagonal slide, the queen's unlimited power. Each piece moved with purpose and logic that made perfect sense to him. Richard's predatory gaze found him instantly. Well, who let a monkey loose in my house?" The words sliced through the room's warm air like winter wind. Laughter erupted, louder and crueler than before, the sound of jackals scenting blood. Lydia materialized as if summoned by nightmare, her face flushed with terror and shame. She grabbed Malik's arm, pulling him backward. "I told you to stay put," she hissed, her voice breaking. Her hand landed on his shoulder, not a slap, but the desperate touch of someone drowning. Richard raised a hand, stopping her retreat. Now, Lydia. The poor child just wants to see how his betters live." His voice dripped with mock benevolence. "Perhaps our little monkey would like to try? Give him a story to tell his friends in whatever gutter you call home." The room erupted in fresh laughter. Malik stood frozen, his small hands clenched into fists. His mother's eyes pleaded with him to run, to hide, to disappear into the shadows where people like them belonged. But Richard's word was law in that mansion, and everyone waited to see if the boy would dare. "Come," Richard commanded, patting the leather chair across from him. "Let's give the monkey a proper education." Malik walked forward on legs that felt disconnected from his body. The chair swallowed him, its high back making him appear even smaller, more vulnerable. But his eyes never left the board. The scent of old leather and expensive tobacco filled his nostrils, and beneath it all, the sharp smell of his own fear. "Do you even know how these pieces move, boy?" Richard's voice oozed condescension, each word calculated to wound. "Yes, sir." Malik's voice was barely a whisper. "Well then, let's see what kind of genius we've imported from the servants' quarters." The room exploded in laughter again, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings like thrown stones. Lydia pressed herself against the doorframe, her heart hammering against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to drag her son away, but she knew it would only make the humiliation worse. Behind her, two waiters whispered their bets on how quickly the boy would cry. Richard opened with casual arrogance, his moves quick and dismissive. He leaned back in his chair, basking in the anticipated victory, his eyes seeking approval from his audience. But Malik studied the board with an intensity that gradually silenced the whispers. His small fingers hovered over his pieces like a pianist finding the right keys, then moved with quiet precision. Each of Richard's traps was met with a counter. Each aggressive thrust was parried with mathematical certainty. The billionaire's smug expression began to falter. His king stood trapped, hemmed in by pieces that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. "Checkmate," Malik said, his voice soft as falling snow. The room erupted in gasps. Richard's face flushed crimson, his jaw working soundlessly for a moment before he barked out a laugh that fooled no one. "Lucky guess," he snarled, his fingers trembling as he reset the pieces. Again, the second game unfolded like a nightmare in reverse. Richard's moves grew frantic, desperate, while Malik maintained his preternatural calm. His small hand would hover, consider, then strike with surgical precision. "Checkmate." The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water. This time, the applause came, scattered at first, then growing stronger. Richard's partners, who had cowered before him minutes earlier, now leaned forward with gleaming eyes. The predator had become prey, and they could smell blood in the water. "Best of three?" Richard demanded, his voice cracking like ice under pressure. But everyone could see the truth. The Emperor's clothes were dissolving before their eyes, one move at a time. By the third game, the atmosphere had transformed completely. The laughter that once carried Richard's cruelty had died, replaced by a tension thick enough to taste. Guests pressed forward in their chairs, phones appeared in trembling hands, recording every moment of the impossible. Richard's confidence had curdled into desperation. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the room's perfect climate control. His hands shook as he moved his pieces, each decision a small agony. Malik remained serene, a small island of calm in the storm of adult emotions swirling around him. His breathing stayed steady, rhythmic, while Richard's grew harsh and ragged. "No way," someone whispered. "The kid sees everything." The end came with brutal inevitability. Malik's knight swept across the board, and Richard's king stood naked and defenseless. "Checkmate." The word detonated like a bomb. Applause thundered through the room, genuine, joyous, cathartic. People who had suffered Richard's cruelties for years released their pent-up resentment in waves of approval. Some stood, others whistled, and phones captured every angle of the billionaire's destruction. "No!" Richard slammed his fist against the armrest, his composure finally shattering completely. "Another round. This isn't over." But it was over, and everyone knew it. The king was dead. Long live the king. A silver-haired man approached Malik as the boy slipped down from the towering chair. He crouched to the child's eye level, his face kind and wondering. "Son," he said warmly, "if you want it, I'll personally ensure you receive the finest education money can provide. A mind like yours deserves every opportunity." Malik blinked up at him, then sought his mother's face in the crowd. Lydia stood trembling by the door, tears streaming down her cheeks. Not tears of shame now, but of pride so fierce it threatened to stop her heart. Behind them, Richard Callaway sat trapped in the wreckage of his own arrogance. His empire of fear collapsed around him like a house of cards. The phones would upload their footage within minutes, and by morning, the world would know. The titan of industry had been toppled by a 9-year-old boy with nothing but a brilliant mind and steady hands. What had begun as a cruel joke had ended as justice. The monkey had checkmated the king, and the sound echoing through the mansion wasn't laughter anymore. It was the sound of power changing hands, one move at a time.